number one dad of my very own. Well, not of my very own. I actually had to share him with two sisters and a brother, but I wouldn't trade him and I wouldn't trade them for anything in the whole world. This is my father, Terry Cotner. He's the man on the left. The lovely woman on the right is my mama. Both of them amazing parents, and I love them to death. My dad is a man of many trades. They say that most men will go through, I think, 11 careers in their life. I think my dad is working on like 33. He has done so many things with his life. I could probably spend this whole service telling you about some of the things that he's done, some of the adventures that he's made out of his life, and the misadventures that he's made out of his life, and the successes, and it would be great. It would be great. He's done all kinds of amazing things. But currently what he does is he buys and he restores properties. So it's pretty cool for me, because every time I get to go on vacation, I go back home and I get to work with my dad in construction, and we get to remodel homes and fix them up and do all that stuff, and it's a blast. I actually really love it a lot. Other than plumbing and insulation, either one of those two things, I got something else I need to do. But a good thing to know about my dad, if you guys ever get the chance to meet him, and I hope you do, a good thing to know is how much he values your word. So he's very much a man of integrity. And one of the greatest lessons he ever taught me was how to keep my word and how important it is. How important it is, because your word and your ability to keep it when you give it to someone is a direct reflection of how much you value that person. So when he told me he was going to do something, he did it. And that made me think that I was worth something. And it made me think that he was worth something because he believed in what it is that he said. And so I want to thank my dad for that. That's one of the greatest things that he taught me, but the greatest thing that he taught me is what I want to talk about today. The greatest thing that he taught me, and I don't even know that he knew that he was teaching it to me, but the greatest thing he taught me was how to follow my Father in heaven. So one of the greatest memories I have of my father was when I was about 11, and we were on vacation. Every year we would go on vacation to a place in southern Missouri down by the Ozarks called the Landings. And it's a campground. And we would camp, and on Saturday we would go on like a 5-mile float, and then Sunday morning we'd wake up really early and we'd go to this state park in Missouri called Johnson's Shut-ins. And Johnson's Shut-ins is the coolest, most amazing state park in the world. I don't know if they have state parks in other countries, but whatever it is that they have, Johnson's Shut-ins is better. So I can get the picture of Johnson's Shut-ins up there. This is Johnson's Shut-ins. It's a place where this big piece of granite has just been put right in the middle of the Black River, and the river has worn all these slides and waterfalls and caves into the side of it. And this is about a tenth of what it really is. You can't get it all in one picture, but it is awesome. It's God's water park, is really what it is. And so we would go there and we would spend all day Sunday just hanging out. And one of the things that my dad really loved to do was this bluff right here. He would jump off of this bluff. And my dad was known for it back home. We have another bluff back home called Cougar's Bluff. And Cougar's Bluff gets a whole lot higher. In fact, it goes all the way up to the side, and then there's a tree. And up in that tree, there's a branch. My dad would climb up onto this branch and do backflips off of it into the water. And everybody thought he was crazy, because that particular spot, you have to land in an area of water that's about this big. And it's a good 15 feet out, so you gotta like jump. And so my dad was a superhero when it came to cliff jumping. And that was something we always wanted to do. So every time we'd go down there, we'd see him jumping off and we'd want to do it. My brother and I would. And so I'm 11, and he looks at me and he says, "Do you want to jump?" And I was like, have any of you ever seen my daughter get excited? If you've ever worked in the nursery, you've probably seen my daughter get excited. She gets excited a lot. And she balls up her little fists, and she goes, just like that. So there I am on the edge of this bluff, and he takes us up there, and I get to the top, guys, and I am half ecstatic that I'm going to do this, and half terrified, like maybe I'm not. If I can show you I got another picture. That's the edge of the bluff. So that's kind of the view, looking down, and all the people are this big, and you're just like, I'm 11. There's like an 18-year-old next to me, and he's like, man, I don't know. Yeah? So my dad looks at me and he's like, go ahead. And I was like, no. You first, Dad. You first. And so he did. Off he went. And I mean, you would have thought the man could fly by the way that my brother and I were watching him. Whoa. Right? I mean, I got this cinematic memory of him going through the air just in slow motion. And just before he hits the water, he does that perfect toothpick into the water. And I don't think I even let the water clear out of his ears when he came up before I was like, "Did it hurt, Dad?" And he laughed. He said, no, come on. And off I went. Y'all, I must have jumped off that bluff 30 times that day. It was epic. It was one of the best days of my life. The 18-year-old didn't do it, and the 11-year-old did it? What? My brother was 8. I totally ignored that fact when I was a kid, but he was 8. And we did it. And I think about that. And I think about the dad that I want to be. And I think about another person. There was another person that day that didn't think that it was that great. That was Mom. The lady in the green shirt. So she was cool about it. She was. I think my dad got to sleep in his own bed that night. I think. But she made sure that we knew that an 11-year-old and an 8-year-old jumping off of a bluff that we really shouldn't have been jumping off of is not only dangerous, but is a little foolish. And she was probably a little right. But that day, Terry Cotner walked on water in the eyes of his 2 sons. When we went home that day, it was a long 3-hour drive home. When we went home that night, I'm exhausted, laying in the back seat just like, that was awesome. Because it was. And the first day of school, that next year, you best believe everybody in the school knew that I was a certified cliff jumper. Yeah. So I loved it, and I think about that, and I think about my daughter, and I think about the dad that I want to be. I want to be that #1 dad. My dad, that day, he wasn't perfect, but that day and many, many other days, my dad was. He was that #1 dad, and I want to be just like him. And so I think about what it is that he did. What did he do? He provided for us, all 4 of us and my mama. He protected us. He set a good, godly authority. My dad always did what was best for his children. Like, it was never about him. It was always about what I need to do to make sure that you succeed in this life. I need to do to make sure that you become who you're meant to be. And I want that. But more than that, I want what he taught me that day. See, he taught me a little bit about who I am. Not everybody in the world wants to jump off a bluff. No. Not everybody's drawn to those kinds of activities. But Cotner children are. They are. And so there's so many things in my life that are stamped Cotner. Like, that's my last name. There's so many things that he's taught me that are me. They make me, and they're a part of who I am and where I came from. And I want that. I want to be able to know what it is that my kids want to do with their lives, and I want to know how to do it. I want to know how to do it. So in that moment, he knew that his 2 sons really wanted to jump off that bluff. He knew we did, and he knew how to do it, and he knew how to show us, and that's what I want. I want it. But then I think about it, and I think about how long of a laundry list that really, really is. Because I could go to work tomorrow, and they could say, hey, we don't need you anymore. Something can happen to Michelle while she's out grocery shopping, and I won't be there to protect her. And when it comes to authority, I know what good godly authority looks like, and I have a real hard time keeping myself in line with it, let alone being able to set the example for my family. And when it comes to knowing what they want to do, I pray and I hope that I would, but what if Kaylee Grace really wants to be a ballet dancer? What am I going to do? Can you guys picture me in a tutu on my toes? No. I could try it. I probably would. Y'all, I'm not going to lie. I'd probably be that dad that Mom took pictures of in the living room and put on YouTube or something. But I probably would. But I'll tell you what, I would fail at it completely. It wouldn't be anything like that moment where my dad went off the edge of that bluff and showed me something. I would probably be unbelievably lame at it. So I think about those things, and I think about how hard it is to be a good dad. How hard is it to be that number one dad? It's almost impossible. And I think that's where we're at today in the world. Is that so many dads see this long laundry list of what I should be, and they have no idea how to do it. And so they believe this lie about how the world works that says that, you know what? My children would be better off without me there. And to be honest, it breaks my heart to pieces. It breaks my heart. I love our students. I love serving our students, and this is why. Because when it comes to those things, it just tears me up inside. So I had a student tell me not too long ago, she said that, my dad lives an hour and a half away, and I don't bother to go see him. And I think about that. And of course, I think it's backwards, but really there's a dad out there. There's a dad out there that's missing it. He's missing that chance to be the superhero that my dad got to be when he jumped off that bluff. He's missing so much. He is. He's missing it. And I think about James Patton's daughter. The day that we were at his memorial service, after he passed in that rotation in 2010, she's dressed in yellow, and she's with all the family up front, and we're all in formation, honoring the sacrifice that her daddy made. And she's playing. She has no idea. She has no idea the significance of the moment. And she's going to live the rest of her life, and she's not going to have that. And it just breaks my heart. It breaks me. So then I think about it, and I think about how wonderful God made it. Like that situation where my dad was laughing, do you know what that was? Like he laughed and said, no, come on. It was I'm here. I'm about to show you something that's going to blow your mind. I know it. He knew I want that. And I think about Kaylee, when she learns something new, and I get the chance to teach her. Right now it's little things. Right now it's how to put the little star-shaped piece into the little tub so that it fits. And when she gets it every time, and she laughs, and she's so excited, and that father's heart just burns. Oh, I love it. And I want it. But the truth is it's broken. Where we're at, things are broken. How do you replace James Patton? What about that dad that's not there? And then I look at the church, and I see all of these men who are teaching me at 34 years old how to be the dad that I need to be. And I go, I think you got this, God. I think you know what you're doing. I think you know what you're doing. And so then I think about these things, and I wonder, well, how is it that I can relate to my father? How is it that Jesus related to his father? And I go to the book of John, chapter 5. And Jesus is being persecuted at this point for calling God in heaven his Father. And he responds to them. Jesus gives them this answer. I tell you the truth. The Son can do nothing by himself. He can only do what he sees his Father doing. Because whatever the Father does, the Son does also. For the Father loves the Son and shows him all that he does. Yes, to your amazement, he will show him greater things than these. I love this. Because Jesus has been doing what? He's been healing. He's been saying the perfect thing in the exact moment it needs to be said. He knows people before they even talk to him. He knows their inner hearts and everything about them. And he's saying, I get all of these things from my daddy, who shows me. My father who shows me. Just like my father showed me that day on the bluffs, his father is showing him. And I think that's great. That's exactly what I want. I want God in heaven to show me exactly what I need to do so that I can provide, I can protect, I can be a good authority, and I can show them who they are. So they have this stamp that says, you know what, I'm a Cotner, and this is the way God made me. I want that. I want it. And if you go to the book of 1 John, chapter 3, verse 1, it says, how great is the love the Father has lavished on us that we should be called children of God. So this is John, both books written by John. In the first book, Jesus is being persecuted for calling on God in heaven his Father. Here, he's saying, no, not just Jesus. All of us, we all get the chance to call God in heaven our Father. And so I get pretty excited about this. So now I think about that moment with my Father on that bluff and the chance to do that for my kids. And I realize that that's in God's will. That's exactly what he wants to happen. That's exactly what he wants. Can you imagine this? This is what really got me. Jesus was there when God created the cosmos. How cool would it be? I mean, it was cool for me to watch my dad jump off that bluff. The man could fly. It was just awesome. How much greater would it be if you're sitting there and your dad just said a word and all of creation came into being? Like, whoa! I would love it. That's it. That's what I want. That Father's heart to show my children that this world that we live in is a good place. And the scriptures are saying that I can do it. That my God wants that for me. That's who he made me to be and how he designed the world to work. I love it. I love it. I love it. And so I'm just like elated. I'm thinking about these things and meditating on these things to bring to you guys. And I am so excited at this point. And I think about it. And then the bottom drops out. You guys ever been in that moment where the bottom dropped out? Where, you know what, this is great, and I just heard this amazing song on the radio, and I'm having a moment with God, and I'm driving, and somebody cuts me off, and the bottom dropped out. And I'll tell you how it did. It's because I realized that, no matter how perfect I could be as a dad, I could show her all the right things. I could give her the best view of authority that I could possibly do, and I could always provide and protect her. And she has every right to reject everything that I give her. My daughter does. That's the way it is. That's the way God made it. So she has the ability to say, Dad, everything that you say and everything that you try and teach me is wrong and I don't believe it. In fact, if you could just keep providing for me and protecting me, we'll be good. And then the rest of that stuff you can keep. I don't want to do what you say, and I don't want to hear about how great the world is, because it's not. She can, and she might. And what do I do? See that? I got to that moment, and I was just like, I don't know that I like this world that you made so much, God. I'll be honest. Because what you steal her cell phone? You say, no, you can't have your cell phone. You take the car keys. I mean, how do you change that heart condition? She could. How do I change that situation? And then I realized that the bottom never dropped out. See, the Father heart of God, it stretches all the way to the cross. See, that's what God did. Because that's the question I ask. Well, God, what do you do when this happens? What do you do in that moment? What do you do? He's like, I'll tell you what I did. I sent my son, who lived the perfect life, as a willing sacrifice for you. So that you could look at that and say, and realize that I am good, and I do love you. I do love you. He didn't have to. He never had to. He would have been just fine living in heaven completely with Jesus just for all of eternity. He could have just forgot we ever existed, but he's a good God, and he didn't do that. And at any point that Jesus was here on earth and he was being nailed to the cross, he could have been like, no, this isn't what I want. Would I do that for my brother or my sister? I don't know. I'm not perfect enough to do it. So it's really hard to fathom. I think about that and I praise God that he loves his children